The yeas are 210, the nays are 216. The motion is not adopted. The question is on passage of the bill. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. For the ayes have it. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Michigan?
Mr. Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays have been requested. Those favoring the vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 221, the nays are 205. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on adoption of House Resolution 432, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title.
Discharge Calendar Number 3, House Resolution 432, Resolution providing for consideration of the bill, H.R. 2550, to nullify the executive order relating to exclusions from federal labor management relations programs and for other purposes.
The question is on adoption of the resolution. Members will record their votes by electronic means. This is a 5-minute vote.
voted. On this vote, the yeas are 232, the nays are 194. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to House Resolution 432, the House will proceed to the immediate consideration of H.R. 2550, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill to nullify the executive order relating to exclusions from federal labor management relations programs and for other purposes.
Pursuant to House Resolution 432, the bill is considered read. The bill shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking member of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform or their respective designees. The gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Comer, and the gentleman from California, Mr. Garcia, will each control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Comer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to H.R. 2550. Americans pay several hundred billion in taxes each year to fund the salaries and benefits of more than 2 million federal civilian employees. These workers are paid to carry out the critical mission and functions of the federal government. But the more than 340 million Americans who foot the bill do not directly manage federal executive branch employees. They elect a president to do that. The president directs the workforce of the executive branch so he can fulfill his constitutional duty to ensure the laws of the land are faithfully executed. When President Trump ran for office last year, he told the American public that if elected, he would return federal employees to their offices, reform the bureaucracy, and restore much-needed accountability to the workforce. The American people chose to elect him to do just that. But even before President Trump took office, federal collective bargaining legal authorities were weaponized to sabotage what Americans had voted for. On their way out the door, lame duck Biden administration officials signed collective bargaining agreements with federal employee union bosses specifically designed to tie the hands of the incoming President Trump. In January, at our very first hearing this Congress, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform heard testimony from President Biden's Social Security Commissioner, Martin O'Malley. He cut a deal with union bosses after the November election, after the election, and just before leaving the agency to run for chair of the Democrat National Committee. The deal locked in telework levels for tens of thousands of Social Security Administration employees for the entirety of the incoming Trump administration. To be clear, this was done specifically to Trump-proof the workforce, to force the incoming president to continue the failed management policies the public had just voted to end. So we must ask, are we going to uphold the president's constitutional role as head of the executive branch? Can he truly lead if he is held hostage by union deals to which he never agreed and were intended to undermine his authority? Should an elected president be able to bring taxpayer-funded federal employees back to work for his entire 4-year term? The American people do not think so. That is why the House Oversight Committee adopted legislation that would allow the president to manage the workforce without being bound by last-minute union agreements designed to undermine him. That legislation, the Preserving Presidential Management Authority Act, sponsored by Representative Cloud of Texas, is the bill we should be debating here today. It is important to remember that public sector unions are fundamentally different from their private sector counterparts. In fact, none other than Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a major champion of private sector unions, believed that public sector unions made no sense. FDR wrote that, quote, "The process of collective bargaining as usually understood, cannot be translated into the public service, end quote. Why? Because in the private sector, unions represent workers and sit across the bargaining table from representatives of business owners. However, federal unions are not negotiating with a profit-seeking corporation. They are negotiating with the public's elected representatives. As FDR put it, in the case of the public sector, the employer is the whole people. Federal unions, in other words, seek concessions not from private owners, but from the taxpayers themselves. And since federal salaries and benefits are determined by laws, which also establish basic civil service protections for employees, what exactly do federal unions bargain over? They bargain over conditions of employment, like telework. Unions also seek contract provisions that limit management's ability to hold employees accountable through disciplinary procedures or performance management processes. I urge my colleagues to buck federal union bosses, put Americans first, and oppose the so-called Protect America's Workforce Act. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and insert other material into the record.
Without objection.
I yield myself such time as I may consume. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of the Protecting America's Workforce Act, which will restore collective bargaining rights to more than 1 million federal workers. I want to thank Congressman Golden for all of his work to bring this bipartisan bill to the floor, and so many members across our caucus who are supportive. Now, we know this bill is a historic win which overcame opposition from Speaker Johnson and certainly anti-worker allies across the government. In March, President Trump signed an executive order terminating collective bargaining rights for federal police officers, firefighters, nurses, food inspectors, and so many more. Now, the nurses who care for our veterans, the flight and safety inspectors at the FAA, nuclear power plant safety workers, and countless others lost their right to have representation in the workplace. This is unfair and it's wrong. Workers deserve the right to make their voices heard with a union. Now, Mr. Speaker, I was the mayor of my city, Long Beach, California, before I came to Congress, and I was so proud to partner with our city unions, always making sure that the city and services ran effectively. Our federal unions are the same. They make sure that our civil service is independent and nonpartisan, serving the citizens and not whichever party is currently in power. They make sure we attract and retain highly talented workers, and they make sure that our agencies follow the law. President Trump is targeting federal unions to further his power grab and to continue to push an agenda which leaves working families behind and instead supports billionaires. Unions make our class stronger, they make our government stronger, and they make our economy stronger. We should be working every day to strengthen the right to organize, not to undermine it. This bill is a historic victory, and I commend Congressman Golden and everyone who's worked on it. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Texas. Oh, wait. Mr. Cloud.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to H.R. 2550. The proposed legislation is designed to nullify President Trump's lawful executive order to exclude agencies within the national security missions from collective bargaining agreements. Article 2 of the Constitution is crystal clear. The executive power is invested in the President of the United States. Let me repeat, all authority in the executive branch flows from the people to the duly elected executive. Anyone operating outside of the pleasure of the President in the executive branch is simply part of an unconstitutional fourth branch of government. The President holds the sole authority. Yet for decades, federal collective bargaining agreements have been allowed, and some even designed to restrict the President's ability to lead the government we elected him to run. That's why President Trump, acting fully within the authority granted by the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, amended Jimmy Carter's 1979 executive order to exempt additional agencies from burdensome collective bargaining agreements. Agencies such as the Department of Defense, State, Justice, Homeland Security, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, as well as many others. The left's disdain for the Constitution cannot be more clear. We saw this during Trump administration 1 with the resistance movement. During the Biden administration, we saw the auto pen controversy, where they even went around the executive. The Biden administration spent the final months, even after being voted out of office, frantically signing union contracts which were explicitly designed to sabotage the incoming administration and prevent the president elected by the people from carrying out the mandate he was given. These same government unions are not neutral public servants. In the 2023 to 2024 election cycle, the 4 largest federal employee unions spent nearly $1 billion on politics. 98.8% of their federal contributions went to the Democratic Party. Unions like the American Federation of Government Employees, the National Treasury Employees Union, AFSCME, SEIU, and others affected by this executive order have made no secret of their intent to resist this agenda the American people voted for. As Congress, we need to ensure that the Constitution is upheld. We need more legislation like the Preserving Presidential Management Authority Act, which simply reaffirms Article 2 and ensures that no future administration can permanently handcuff its successor. I urge my colleagues to defend Article 2, reject this H.R. 2550, and stand with the American people who sent us here to drain the swamp, not to protect it. Thank you for your time. Now yield back.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to yield a minute and a half to Representative Fitzpatrick.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 2550, bipartisan legislation to restore collective bargaining rights for hundreds of thousands of unionized federal employees. This legislation reaffirms a core principle. A government that serves the people must also respect the rights of those who serve within it. Federal employees work tirelessly every day, often behind the scenes. They process Social Security benefits, safeguard our food, safeguard our water, care for our veterans, and respond whenever a disaster strikes. Their work is essential, and its impact reaches every community across this nation. Mr. Speaker, by restoring their collective bargaining rights, we strengthen a system that keeps government effective, stable, and responsive, all without compromising security or mission readiness. Reinstating these rights is not a concession, it is a commitment to treat federal workers with dignity, to reinforce a resilient public service, and to honor the commitment of the men and women who show up for the American people every single day. I urge my colleagues to support this bill. I want to thank my friend and colleague from Maine, Jared Golden, for his partnership and, more importantly, for his courage in advancing this initiative. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 4 minutes to the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Biggs.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. And I thank the chairman. This bill would nullify President Trump's executive order 14251, which rightly excluded 40 national security agencies from collective bargaining. Agencies like FEMA, Coast Guard, CDC, the VA cannot afford to be paralyzed by union red tape when lives are on the line. I want to emphasize, this is going to nullify an executive order. It's going to attack his agenda, the America First agenda, that he was overwhelmingly elected to enact. These unions are not neutral actors. The number of $1 billion was mentioned by, billionaires was mentioned by my colleague from California. I'm glad he mentioned the term billion, because that's what the partisan machine government unions spent in the last election, just under $1 billion, 980 million of it going to Democrats, which explains in no small measure the rationale for the movement of this bill to negate President Trump's executive order. In its final days, the Biden administration rushed to lock in long-term union contracts designed to tie President Trump's hands for his second term. H.R. 2550 preserves those deals signed after President Trump was reelected, but before Inauguration Day. That undermines the will of the voters and the authority of the Commander-in-Chief. It is legislative sabotage, and we shouldn't give in to that. Civil Service Reform Act of 1978 explicitly gives the President authority to exclude agencies from collective bargaining when national security is at stake. This would undo that. Presidents from Carter to Reagan to Trump have exercised this authority. Courts have already sided with President Trump, affirming that in matters of national security, the President enjoys, quote, unique responsibility, close quote. Arizona knows too well the cost of bureaucratic failure. The Phoenix VA scandal showed what happens when accountability is lost. Veterans died waiting for care. We must not allow unions to dictate policy if it is going to impact national security, if it's going to affect our borders, if it's going to affect our energy, if it's going to affect protecting Americans during pandemics. In a state where public safety and national defense are daily realities, my state, this bill would put union bosses ahead of the American people and in front of Arizonans. In 2024 alone, the political arm of the Democrat Party, the four largest public sector unions, spent $900 million plus on progressive politics. 86% of that came from their members' dues. They're using taxpayer-backed salaries to fund partisan activism, not to serve the American people. H.R. 2550 strips the President of his constitutional authority, undermines national security, and rewards partisan obstruction. President Trump is trying to fulfill his duty to protect the American people. Congress should not stand in his way. I urge my colleagues to stand with the President, put America's security ahead of union politics, and vote no, and I'll yield.
Gentleman from Arizona yields. Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield a minute and a half to Representative Norcross.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of H.R. 2550, a bill that would restore a vote, the collective bargaining rights for all federal employees. Earlier this year, President Trump launched one of the largest attacks on labor in the history of the United States. The working people who voted to join a union and have a voice. President Trump suggests that it is a problem to national security. Well, quite frankly, it has not been. They cite that there would be strikes. There hasn't been, and it is illegal to strike. In fact, we're looking for workers to help build our military at the very time that the President is trying to beat down those workers. So this is where the real problem is. That executive order stripped the federal workers of their collective bargaining rights. The suggestion is that they cancel the contracts. We always deal in contracts. A collective bargaining agreement is a contract between the people and the public entity. We do it across the board each and every day. Less than 24 hours ago, in this very room, we had a chance to immediately restore the collective bargaining rights just for the Department of Defense. They all voted no. And today they want to vote yes. A day late and a dollar short is what I'm talking about. You could have voted for a fraction of the people yesterday and it would become law. Today, they vote for it. You can't have it both ways. Let me be clear. We want to work together. Both sides of the aisle. This is incredibly important. And we need to remember the collective bargaining agreements are about a vote by the people. Don't steal the vote. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from California reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gill.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Comer, for yielding time on this important issue. I strongly oppose this bill because it would jeopardize our national security and locks in harmful last-minute agreements from the Biden administration. Union bosses love this bill for one reason, and that's because it protects their telework perks, it shields them from accountability, and gives them effective veto power over a duly elected president with a mandate to clean up a bloated federal bureaucracy. Specifically, this legislation would nullify President Trump's executive order entitled Exclusions from Federal Labor Management Relations Programs. The executive order wisely designated various agencies as having a national security focus as their primary functions and exempts them from collective bargaining. Union officials do not and should not have the right to use their collective bargaining power to undermine President Trump and jeopardize our national security. One example of this, just fairly recently, is ICE not being able to modify cybersecurity policies without giving its union bosses an opportunity to negotiate, delaying needed cybersecurity updates. In another example, union bosses threatened to block the Office of Personnel Management from implementing basic IT security controls. There's a troubling pattern where union bosses block measures that they don't like, forgetting that they work for the American people and not the other way around. The President's executive order also improves care for veterans. On August 6, 2025, the VA announced that it is terminating most union contracts to comply with the executive order. Employees at the VA currently spend 750,000 hours engaging not in care for veterans, but in union activities. That is every single year. The President's executive order will lead VA employees to spend more time helping veterans and less time in union activities. But it goes even further. This bill forbids the Trump administration from unwinding any collective bargaining agreement signed before March 26, 2025. After Democrats lost the 2024 elections, the Biden administration hurried to ink multi-year deals that they knew they would never have to enforce, deliberately tying the hands of their successors and rewarding union leadership on their way out. One example is especially egregious in a deal with the Social Security Administration, a deal that allows maximum telework, prohibits management from reducing it, and applies 98.5% of the agency's workforce.
I yield the gentleman an additional minute.
Without objection.
The Protect America's Workforce Act is nothing short of an attempt to prevent President Trump from reforming the federal bureaucracy. It undermines national security and rewards union bosses who think that they run the government. I urge opposition and yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Kentucky reserves, and gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to the Democratic leader, Representative Jeffries.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to also thank, of course, the distinguished gentleman from the great state of California, Representative Garcia, for his leadership, and of course, thank Representative Golden for his leadership in pushing this legislation forward. I rise today in strong support of the Protect America's Workforce Act, legislation that will restore the collective bargaining rights of more than 1 million hardworking federal employees. Patriotic public servants who've been targeted viciously by the Trump administration from the very beginning of his time in office, unnecessarily and in ways that undermine some of the core promises, Mr. Speaker, that Donald Trump made to the American people last year. Donald Trump and Republicans promised that you would focus on lowering costs on day one. But costs haven't gone down in the United States of America. Costs have gone up. Inflation on the way up. Housing costs out of control. Child care costs out of control. Electricity bills out of control. Grocery costs out of control. And health care costs skyrocketing out of control, including because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Instead of Donald Trump and Republicans, Mr. Speaker, keeping your core promise to the American people to make their life better, instead, you've been focusing on a variety of other things that relate simply to jamming your extreme right-wing ideology down the throats of the American people, including by targeting organized labor. hardworking men and women, including those who are part of the federal workforce. What is it that federal employees do each and every day to make sure that they're providing services to the American people? Well, the list is too numerous to mention, but we know that hardworking federal employees are public servants. Each and every day are working hard to make sure that hard-earned Social Security benefits are delivered to the American people, that Medicare benefits are delivered to the American people, that the food that we eat is disease-free, that we can enjoy our national parks all across the country, that aviation safety and the ability to get from your point of departure to your point of destination, flying airplanes in order to see your loved ones, that's safe. Of course, our hardworking federal employees are working hard to make sure that veterans receive their earned benefits. These people, instead of being targeted by Donald Trump and Republicans, should be supported for the work that they do on behalf of the American people. We also know that when it comes to improving the quality of life of everyday Americans, that there's a lot of repair work that must occur to restore the American dream that is disappearing from folks all across this country. The American people know that the Trump administration and Republican policies have been a disaster. In this great country, as Democrats, we believe that when you work hard and play by the rules, you should be able to live an affordable life, a comfortable life, live the good life. What exactly does that mean? Good paying job, good housing, good health care, good education for your children, and at the end of the day, a good retirement. That's the good life. That's the American dream. And for far too many people, it's out of reach. But we know that perhaps no force has been more proactive in delivering access to that American dream than the men and women of organized labor, decade after decade after decade. Why would Donald Trump and Republicans focus, Mr. Speaker, on targeting hardworking public employees, targeting unions, and targeting the men and women of organized labor? Is it because my Republican colleagues are too consumed with enacting massive tax breaks for your billionaire donors, which is what the one big ugly bill was all about, but have zero interest in lifting up the quality of life of hardworking American taxpayers, including, but not limited to, the men and women of our federal workforce? It was my understanding, Mr. Speaker, that my Republican colleagues believed in freedom. Well, collective bargaining essentially is the freedom to negotiate. The best possible work environment to allow these public employees to continue to deliver services that are effective and efficient for the American people. And yet, instead of focusing on driving down the high cost of living in America, which is out of control, yes, there is an affordability crisis in the United States of America, notwithstanding the fact, Mr. Speaker, that Donald Trump apparently believes it's a hoax. The American people know it's not a hoax. Instead of focusing on trying to find common sense solutions to make life better for the American people, Donald Trump and my Republican colleagues continue to just jam their extreme ideology down the throats of the American people while working overtime to benefit your billionaire donors. That's why I'm thankful for this bipartisan effort to restore collective bargaining rights for more than 1 million public servants who are part of the federal government. And I urge a yes vote. Do the right thing by the federal workforce. Do the right thing by the men and women of organized labor. And do the right thing when it comes to ensuring that everyone has a path to experiencing the American dream. I yield back.
Gentleman from New York yields. The gentleman from California reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
That was a long minute, Mr. Speaker, for the leader of the Democrat Party to advocate for more work-from-home policies from our federal employees. I think the American people have spoken loud and clear. They support our federal employees like the Republican Party, but we expect them to show up for work, not get paid from home and not be accessible by phone or by computer or by email. And that's what we heard from the leader of the Democrat Party. I reserve my time.
Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you. I yield a minute and a half to Representative Krishnamurthy.
Gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of H.R. 2550. This bipartisan bill reverses an illegal executive order that stripped collective bargaining rights from roughly 67% of the federal workforce, so more than 2/3 of the federal workforce. Removing their limited bargaining rights does not improve efficiency. It threatens the integrity of our civil service. These rights exist for one essential reason: to shield federal employees from political pressure so they serve the American people, not the agenda of any one president or political party. No worker should have to take a political loyalty test to receive or keep his or her job. The Protect America's Workforce Act restores a balanced, targeted framework that respects national security while reaffirming the rights of those who serve us. I urge all members to support this legislation and restore these protections for over 1 million federal workers. Again, this particular legislation is about no political loyalty tests having to be administered to workers in the federal government. They are accountable to the American people. I yield back.
Gentleman from Illinois yields. Gentleman from California reserves. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky.
Reserve.
Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. Gentleman from California are recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to yield 1 minute to Representative Randall.
The lady from Washington is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Ranking Member Garcia, Congressman Golden, for the opportunity to speak on the Protecting America's Workforce Act. I represent 27,000 federal employees who have been through an incredibly challenging year marked by reckless DOJ firings, chaotic rehirings, and unprecedented uncertainty. They've been stripped of their ability to collectively bargain through President Trump's March executive order. They've been subjected to harassment and questioning of their political loyalties for nonpartisan positions. They live in constant fear that they may lose their job due to illegal reduction in force efforts that the administration has been trying to get away with. As a result, we are losing talented and highly skilled workers at rates we can't afford. And for Naval Base Kitsap, which includes Sub-Base Bangor and the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard and Intermediate Maintenance Facility, that is a national security issue. I'm a proud former union member and the daughter of a union members, and I will always fight to protect union rights. And what's true about Kitsap, where I grew up, is that we are not red or blue, but we're a union town. That's why I was proud to co-sponsor this bill, a proud signer of the discharge petition, and today will be a proud yes vote on passage. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman, lady's time has expired. The gentleman from California reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to
Mr. Speaker, I rise today not just in support of H.R. 2550, but in support of the right to collectively bargain. This is not a policy idea. It's a lifeline that ensures fair wages, safe workplaces, and the basic dignity every worker deserves. Unions like AFGE, laborers, and IBEW stand on the front lines defending American federal workforce. AFGE represents federal workers, and in my district, there are 10,000 of them. These men and women care for veterans, help seniors receive timely Social Security payments, and serve as correctional officers at Canaan Prison, just to name a few. When their collective bargaining rights are stripped, they are left without the stability, fairness, and respect they deserve. Likewise, the laborers union, who build and maintain the infrastructure this country runs on, and the IBEW, who work in dangerous conditions at military bases and power plants, depend on these rights to ensure proper training and enforce a safety protocol that prevents accidents and saves lives. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to help bring the Protect America's Workforce Act to the floor today, and I look forward to its passage. I yield.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania yields. California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to Representative Lawler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of H.R. 2550, Protecting America's Workforce Act. Earlier this year, an executive order changed the collective bargaining status of tens of thousands of federal workers. These are career public servants, many of them veterans, who show up every single day to serve our country. Every American deserves a voice in the workplace, and that includes the people who keep our government running and open. Ensuring collective bargaining rights strengthens our federal workforce and helps deliver more effective, accountable service to the American people. We must ensure that collective bargaining agreements already in place remain, as well as ensuring that good government goes hand in hand with that. I was proud to join colleagues across the aisle as being the 218th signature to advance this bill forward. I want to thank Congressman Fitzpatrick and Golden for leading this effort, as well as my fellow congressmen here, Mr. Bresnahan, as well as Congressman Lolota for their leadership on this front. I yield the balance of my time.
Gentleman from New York yields. The gentleman from California reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is reserves. Chair recognizes the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to Representative Bell.
Gentleman from Missouri is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 2550, the Protect America's Workforce Act. We all count on a federal workforce that shows up every day to serve, not to bend to political pressure or wonder if speaking up will cost them their jobs. But that's exactly the risk if collective bargaining rights are wiped out. It pushes aside a system that's been built over generations to protect workers, protect taxpayers, and keep politics out of public service. Taking away the voice of federal workers doesn't make government stronger. It makes it easier for retaliation, harder for whistleblowers, and worse for the people we represent. I urge my colleagues to do right by the people who serve our country every day by restoring basic fairness and bringing us back to a system that has worked under both parties for decades. I yield back.
The gentleman from Missouri yields. The gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky also reserves. Chair recognizes the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to Representative Walkinshaw.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in...
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of the Protect America's Workforce Act. In my community, Mr. Speaker, public service is a way of life. More than 80,000 of my neighbors work directly for the federal government. These civil servants protect our national security, care for our veterans, process Social Security claims, advance medical research, and respond when disaster strikes. They've also been on the front lines of President Trump and Roosevelt's Project 2025 inspired efforts to, quote, traumatize the federal workforce. Stripping collective bargaining rights is a direct assault on our nonpartisan civil service. This bill says not on our watch. That's why I signed the discharge petition on my first day in office. This bill restores basic rights for federal employees, defends the merit-based civil service, and honors the spirit of public service that defines my community and communities across the country. I urge my colleagues to support the bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Virginia yields. Gentleman from California reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky reserves also. Gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to Representative Titus.
Gentlelady from Nevada is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for your leadership. I rise in very strong support of the Protect America's Workforce Act. Since day one, President Trump has worked to dismantle the institutions that protect workers and weaken the power of organized labor. He dismissed commissioners from the federal agency responsible for enforcing workforce civil rights, and he stripped the National Labor Relations Board of its quorum. Then in March, he moved to take away unionization rights from thousands of government workers, including those at the Departments of Defense, State, and Veteran Affairs. We count on these public servants to be on the front lines, keeping our communities running and our constituents safe. In return, they deserve to have their rights protected. And that's why I'm a strong supporter of this legislation that will overturn the President's dangerous and illegal executive order eliminating collective bargainings. And I urge my colleagues to do the same and vote in favor of this important legislation. Thank you so much. I yield back.
Lady from Nevada yields. The gentleman from California reserves, as does the gentleman from Kentucky. I recognize the gentleman from California.
Thank you. I would like to yield 1 minute to Representative Horsford, please.
The gentleman from Nevada is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you,
to the gentleman for yielding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite repeatedly claiming to be the most pro-worker president and administration in history, since taking office, President Trump took action earlier this year that stripped collective bargaining rights from nearly 1 million federal employees. These workers are the backbone of our nation, from nurses caring for veterans, law enforcement officers keeping our communities safe, teachers educating the next generation, and countless others who ensure America runs every day. That's why I was proud to co-sponsor the Protect America's Workforce Act alongside my Congressional Labor Caucus co-chairs and our over 120 members to counter what is arguably the largest act of union busting in American history. I urge every member of this chamber to join the Congressional Labor Caucus in supporting this crucial legislation. Let's stand with federal workers in restoring their union rights against these unprecedented attacks on their livelihoods. I urge adoption.
Gentleman from Nevada yields. The gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky reserves. Recognize the gentleman from California.
To Representative Pecan.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Wisconsin for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to urge us to pass this discharge petition. Earlier this year, Donald Trump did an illegal executive order stripping 1 million federal workers from their collective bargaining rights they've had since 1962. We've seen this in my home state. In 2011, Governor Scott Walker launched one of the most aggressive attacks on workers' rights, stripping collective bargaining rights. What happened? Our School of Education had a 2/3 drop in people applying to be teachers. We lost long-term public employees, and that affected services. This bill will restore long-standing collective bargaining protections and ensure that any future administration cannot demolish these rights again. To our federal employees across the country, we hear you, we value you, and we're fighting with you, and we stand on behalf of the federal workers that are negatively affected by the President's actions. I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Wisconsin yields. The gentleman from California reserves, as does the gentleman from Kentucky. Chair recognizes the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to Representative Takuda.
Thank you,
Chair
Mr.
recognizes the lady from Hawaii for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today outraged at the ongoing assault on the rights and protections of the federal workers who serve our nation, over 48,000 of them in Hawaii alone. Just yesterday, this House passed the NDAA, meant to strengthen our national defense. However, the NDAA means nothing if we cut down, take away rights, and fail to protect the very workforce that makes national defense possible. Earlier this year, President Trump issued an executive order dismantling collective bargaining agreements for more than 1 million federal employees. Let's be clear, the health care we fight to make affordable and accessible, the services we promise our veterans, the readiness we demand of our agencies, none of it is real if we undermine the employees who deliver these services on the front lines. Without them, these are just empty promises, just words. Collective bargaining, grievance procedures, and whistleblower protections are the foundation of the strong civilian workforce that our national security, veterans, and communities across this country rely on. Our Hawaii Government Employees Association calls this president's actions a direct attack on people.
I'd like to yield an additional 30 seconds, please.
Ladies recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you. Our Hawaii Government Employees Association calls the president's action a direct attack on working Americans. That is why I stand firmly with our union ohana across the country in rejecting these union-busting efforts and urging passage of the Protect America's Workforce Act. Thank you, and I yield back.
Lady from Hawaii yields. The gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Speaker, she mentioned health care, and the health care system that she's talking about that's she says has failed is Obamacare, what they voted for and they created. So I just find it ironic. I hope every taxpayer in America who gets up in the morning, drives to work, works hard, pays their taxes, is listening to this debate, because there's a difference here. And what the president is trying to do is make government more efficient. And what the argument I'm hearing here, and I think the people who work hard and pay taxes here, there's not a single government agency that is at any time inefficient, every single federal employee is at 100% efficiency and doesn't need to be held accountable and can work from home and do whatever they want. We support the federal workforce. We want to make the federal workforce harder. We want the taxpayers to get their money's worth out of the hard-earned taxes that they send to Washington. And what this legislation is doing, and the goal is to try to hinder the president's ability to get the backs of the American taxpayer and ensure that every government agency is efficient and every federal employee is working hard, just like the taxpayers who work hard and pay taxes and send their tax dollars here to Congress for us to appropriate. So I think that's an important part of the discussion that needs to be mentioned on the floor, and I hope that a lot of people in America who are working hard, frustrated with Washington, are watching this debate. I reserve.
Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you. I also, like Chairman Comer, agree, and I hope that the American public are watching this debate right now, and certainly what they would see if they were watching this debate is not just Democrats advocating for passage, but Republicans advocating for passage. In fact, this is a bipartisan effort to protect federal workers in this country. And we've heard now from multiple Republicans from the chairman's party who have actually advocated with Democrats to ensure that our president doesn't strip basic protections from our federal workers. We're talking about our federal nurses, our firefighters, law enforcement, medical professionals, the men and women that are working across our airports, that are taking care of our nuclear reactors in this country. They deserve the right to organize. And so I do agree. I hope the American public is watching and listening to our Republican colleagues and our Democrats support our federal workers. And with that, I'd like to yield 1 minute to Representative Tlaib.
The lady from Michigan is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, our federal workforce deserve a voice. We know the executive order was the largest act of union busting in our nation's history. It stripped away collective bargaining rights of over 1 million federal employees in over 40 federal agencies. The agencies covered by the executive order employ over 82% of unionized federal workforce. They're workers in every single congressional district. These are workers that protect our food, our water, our air, our skies, and care for our veterans, our children, and our seniors. They are our neighbors. Many people in this chamber know that the union may have helped them achieve the dream that they have of serving here, as well as being able to take care of their families. Many of us are recipients, indirectly or directly, because of unions. Collective bargaining isn't a privilege, Mr. Speaker, that can be just signed away. It's a fundamental right. When working people have a voice on their job, services improve, accountability grows, and we all benefit. The bill doesn't just restore fairness, Mr. Speaker. It restores dignity and due process. So please, I urge my colleagues to protect America's protect America's workforce.
Ladies, time has expired. Gentleman from California reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky also reserves. Chair recognizes gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to Representative Dingell.
The lady from Michigan is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I want to thank Congressman Golden for bringing us together on this important bill. As co-chair of the Congressional Labor Caucus, I know how critical labor rights are, not only for workers and unions, but for all American workers. We are all better off because of unions. Health care, retirement, safe workplaces, holidays, the length of the work week, vacations were negotiated for all of us. We have them because unions negotiated them. And we are here because President Trump signed an executive order seeking to end collective bargaining rights for unionized federal employees across several agencies. Congress, not the executive branch, granted collective bargaining rights for federal employees decades ago, and they have been upheld for years by the administration of both parties. And now thousands of employees have had those rights taken away. Let's get one thing clear. Our federal employees are absolutely essential to keep the country running.
Yield another additional minute, please.
Ladies recognized for 30 seconds.
Our federal employees are
1 minute, sorry, 1 minute.
are absolutely essential to keeping our country running. They're firefighters, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're air traffic controllers, food inspectors, law enforcement, public safety officials. They impact every part of our lives, and we take them for granted. We cannot hurt them. We must support them. I thank my Republican colleagues who have joined us on this bill and encourage those who have not yet recognized this is an opportunity for all of us to work together. Let us show government employees we have their backs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The lady from Michigan yields. The gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to Representative Mannion.
The gentleman from New York is recognized for 1 minute.
As our government employees had their rights violated and were treated poorly, spending is up. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the Protect America's Workforce Act. I'm a proud co-sponsor of this bipartisan legislation to restore collective bargaining rights to hundreds of thousands of federal workers. I was raised in Syracuse, New York, in a union household. My mother was a proud CWA member at New York Telephone, and my father a proud union member at New York Central Railroad. I also served as the president of a 400-member Teachers Association union representing teachers, nurses, school psychologists, and social workers. Those who have a union worker in their family understand the guarantee that comes with a union card: fair pay, solid benefits, a secure retirement, and a real path to the middle class. The indiscriminate stripping of collective bargaining rights through executive action was in a legal gray area, if not outright unlawful. This legislation ends that ambiguity. It should never have been a partisan issue. I'm grateful to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle.
The gentleman's time's expired.
Additional 30 seconds, please.
The gentleman is recognized for 30 seconds longer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for working together towards this meaningful solution. My father always said that a job is more than a paycheck. It's about dignity. All work is dignified when providing for your family. The Protect America's Workforce Act lives up to those ideals. Behind every family's American dream is a good job, and often a good union job. I yield back.
The gentleman from New York yields. The gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized. He reserves. The gentleman from California.
Mr. Speaker, I'm prepared to close.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky.
I'm prepared to close.
As well. Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be brief. Congress should be fighting hard for working people all over this country. We should be tackling the cost of living. We should be fighting to provide world-class government services, and we should be fighting for the unions which make all that possible. We should be working hard to expand the right to organize, not turning back the clock on working families. This bill is a huge win for the American people. I thank Congressman Golden for his work, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
Sector unions have negotiated for themselves at the expense of the American taxpayer by invoking an existing legal authority. H.R. 2550 directly threatens that progress by overturning the President's executive order that exercises one of the few tools available to him under the law to more effectively manage the federal workforce. Now, it's no secret that accountability problems in the federal workforce are legendary. It takes a Herculean effort to fire a poorly performing federal worker or one who is engaged in misconduct. Collective bargaining agreements often create procedural hurdles to firing such employees above and beyond steps required in law and regulation. For example, unions can bring removals before private arbitrators instead of appealing to the Merit Systems Protection Board. The Trump administration is exercising its electoral mandate to address this problem. For instance, the President has embarked on an ambitious overhaul of the performance management system and is pursuing more streamlined disciplinary procedures. The reality is that pre-existing union agreements the President never signed onto can subvert these efforts. They provide barriers to accountability beyond basic employee protections that exist in law. But perhaps the most inappropriate aspect of federal collective bargaining agreements come from provisions governing the use of official time. which is when federal employees are paid by taxpayers to do union business. Indeed, many federal employees spend all their time doing union business. More than 3 million federal employee work hours were spent doing union business time in 2024 alone, according to the OPM report. The cost to American taxpayers in salary and benefits was more than $200 million. There was an additional $31 million cost. The Trump administration collected and reported this 2024 data. House Oversight Committee Republicans have attempted to legislate annual public reporting on the use and abuse of official time. However, Democrats have consistently opposed even this ounce of accountability. They have another opportunity to change their ways by supporting the current version of this legislation, H.R. 5749, the Official Time Reporting Act. However, if my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are not interested in supporting legislative reforms to bring accountability to the federal workforce and public sector unions, they should at the very least not roll back existing progress made under this administration. I therefore call on my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to stand with the American taxpayer by supporting the administration's efforts to bring accountability to the executive branch's workforce and oppose H.R. 2550. I yield back the balance of my time.
All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 432, the previous question is ordered on the bill. The question is on engrossment and third reading of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Third reading.
A bill to nullify the executive order relating to exclusions from federal labor management relations programs and for other purposes.
The question is on passage of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The noes have it. The bill is not adopted.
Yeas and nays, please.
For what purpose does a gentleman from California seek recognition?
Yeas and nays, please.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
Let's vote. The yeas are 231 and the nays are 195. The bill is passed. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I send to the desk a concurrent resolution and ask unanimous consent for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 66, concurrent resolution directing the Secretary of the Senate to make a correction in the enrollment of the bill, Senate 1071.
Is there objection to consideration of the concurrent resolution? Without objection, the concurrent resolution is agreed to and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Mississippi seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I hereby remove myself as a co-sponsor of H.R. 740.
The request is granted.
Thank you very much.
The chair will now entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, over the weekend we marked a solemn day, Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. On December 7th, 1941, our great nation was suddenly attacked by the Imperial Japanese Navy, killing more than 2,400 American service members and civilians and propelling us into World War II. On the 84th anniversary of the attack, we remember those brave souls who lost their lives that day, and we honor those who survived. There are only 12 remaining survivors, and they are all over 100 years old. Unfortunately, none were able to make the trip to Hawaii this year for the remembrance ceremony, but we are forever indebted to their sacrifices. We will forever honor all the Americans who were at the naval base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii that day. Mr. Speaker, President Franklin D. Roosevelt said, quote, "No matter how long it may take us to overcome the premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory," end quote. And we did. God bless those who lost their lives that day, and God bless America. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Michigan seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman from Michigan is recognized for 1 minute.
I want to congratulate Dearborn's Divine Child High School for winning the Division IV state championship with a thrilling 23-22 win. After a dominant season, they rose to the moment at Ford Field to earn their first state championship in 40 years. It was an incredible game and an accomplishment these players, coaches, and families will remember forever. The Falcon players showed grit, heart, and determination from the start to finish. Their offense came alive when it mattered most, and their defense stood strong under pressure. We saw remarkable leadership on the field and witnessed the team's incredible perseverance through challenges. So I want to thank the coaches, the families, and all those that helped with the mentorship and planning and the belief in our athletes. And I want to congratulate the team on a game and a season they'll remember again for the rest of their lives. You all brought home a championship, and you did it with teamwork and pride, and you again made us all incredibly, incredibly happy that day. You made your school and community and so many, again, smile. So congratulations to the Falcons.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize and honor the life of retired Oconto County Police Chief Mike Rayberg, who recently lost his courageous battle with cancer. Chief Rayberg protected and served the people of Oconto County for over 3 decades. He was known by both the people of Oconto County and his peers for his integrity, compassion, and strong commitment to his job, family, and the community that he loved so much. He will be remembered for his infectious laughter, mentoring of newer police officers, the stories he loved to tell, and the practical jokes he would play on his fellow officers. Chief Rayberg represents the very best we have in northeastern Wisconsin, someone who spent his life in service to his community and did so with a smile on his face. My prayers are with his wife, Annie, and their 4 children during this difficult time. Mr. Speaker, I ask my colleagues to join me in thanking Chief Mike Rayberg for his life of service to the people of Oconto County. The legacy he leaves behind will live on in our communities for years to come. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Missouri seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
The St. Louis region and the country are opening their utility bills with a knot in their stomach. Right now, reckless tariff policies and economic uncertainty out of the White House are driving up costs across the country, squeezing working people who are already stretched thin with higher prices at the grocery store, higher rent, and stagnant wages. That's why now more than ever, programs like the Low-Income Energy Assistance Program, LIHEAP, are so critical. Yet earlier this year, the Trump administration wanted to eliminate LIHEAP, a program that supports over 200,000 people in my home state of Missouri. We should be focused on lowering costs and strengthening essential programs, not cutting critical life-saving programs that people rely on to stay warm in the winter. Heating a home is not a luxury, and families in St. Louis should not be left out in the cold. Thank you, and I yield back.
Expired. Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In recent years, the number of publicly listed companies in this country has declined, particularly among small and mid-sized businesses. A key reason for this is that traditional public offerings have become too expensive. Compliance costs and government red tape have made a traditional IPO out of reach for many American businesses. That's why I've introduced my Regulation A+ Improvement Act. This bill will update our regulations so more small and mid-sized companies can raise capital from a wider range of investors, and with less government red tape and compliance costs. This is a common sense step to make our public markets more accessible, more dynamic, and more competitive. Our capital markets are the envy of the world, but we must continue to modernize outdated regulations that have not kept up with the times. I'm committed to ensuring businesses of all sizes in Northeast Indiana and across the country to have the tools that they need to grow, create jobs, and keep our economy strong. With that, I'll yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today because the Trump administration's Environmental Protection Agency is quietly denying us protection from forever chemicals. While Secretary Kennedy claims he will make America healthy again, the EPA announced it would overturn historical reporting requirements on toxic substances known as PFAS. Exposure to small amounts has been linked to cancer, fertility issues, and immune system failure. This year alone, the EPA has delayed enforcement on drinking water limits for PFAS, fired EPA scientists researching new forever chemicals, terminated grants for PFAS studies, and approved pesticides known to have PFAS. Across the political spectrum, legislators have come together to protect our children from dangerous PFAS chemicals. Now this administration is allowing them to be used on cereal grains, peas, beans, tomatoes, oranges, almonds, and more. Not only is this administration making our groceries more expensive, but they're making it less healthy. We must stand together against these actions. Our children's health depends on it. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, for the first time in my life, Indiana University has won the Big Ten football championship outright, beating formerly #1 Ohio State 13-10. The pundit said Ohio State brought the third most talented roster in the country. Indiana was ranked 72 at the start of the season. But our Hoosiers refused to be defined by those numbers. They responded with discipline, toughness, and a belief in one another that reshaped Indiana football. This championship is a testament to the student athletes who committed to the rebuild, the staff who kept driving, and our Hoosier fans who stayed loyal for generations awaiting this moment. Mr. Speaker, as a former chairman of IU's Alumni Association, and on behalf of 805,000 living IU alumni, we celebrate this historic achievement for our university. Congratulations to Coach Signetti and our Hoosiers for bringing the Big Ten title home. Now on to the Rose Bowl. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Unanimous consent to be recognized for 1 minute, make remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, sir. At the end of last week, President Trump published his national security strategy. Could have been called his national insecurity strategy. To say it's bad is a misstatement, understatement. It's disastrous. During Europe's largest land war since World War II, the strategy saves its harshest criticisms for our allies rather than Russia with war criminal Putin, who started the war. The document elevates strongman leadership models over democratic values, something unheard of in America. It is focused on spheres of influence and suggests that the strongest person in the region gets to decide the rules. These are not American values. Previous national security strategies upheld America's commitment to democracy and human rights, strengthened our alliances, and countered powerful adversaries like Russia and China. This strategy abandons that tradition in favor of a narrow transactional approach. Notably, the word corruption is absent from the entire strategy. It is well known that global corruption fuels instability, weakens governments, and its absence is extremely dangerous and allows bad actors to flourish. The national security strategy abandons our allies, our principles, and the values that have guided American leadership for decades. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Sheriff Richard Coleman as Sheriff of the Year for South Georgia from the Georgia Association of Black County Officials. This statewide recognition is part of GABCO's annual tradition of highlighting county leaders whose work strengthens public service and advances opportunity across Georgia's 159 counties. Sheriff Coleman is a Savannah native, and he's a proud 30-year Georgia Certified Peace Officer. He is a graduate of Saul C. Johnson High School, holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice administration, and has a master's degree in public administration. With extensive experience across all levels of law enforcement, Sheriff Coleman is certified Georgia Law Enforcement Executive Administrator and a former Chief of Police. His distinguished career includes roles such as Chief of Internal Affairs, Assistant Chief of Police, and Police Operations Commander. Sheriff Richard Coleman is committed to continuing his service for the people of Chatham County. Congratulations, my friend. This is well deserved. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the 48 million family caregivers in Illinois and across the country. 1 in 6 adults in Illinois are family caregivers. They are a critical part of our healthcare system, yet they often go unpaid and unacknowledged. Although caregiving is a full-time responsibility, more than 60% of family caregivers also hold jobs outside of the home. On top of time, caregivers spend on average 26% of their income on out-of-pocket care expenses. From that financial strain to the emotional burden that caregivers take on, we need to pass policies that improve the care economy for all. I want to especially acknowledge members of the sandwich generation, folks who take care of both their aging parents and their own children. Please know that we see you and we appreciate you. Although National Family Caregivers Month was in November, let's recognize these everyday heroes every month of the year. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past weekend, the Kennesaw State University football team brought home the Conference USA title in just their second year competing at the Football Bowl subdivision level. The Owls achieved this feat just 1 year after only a 2-win season, displaying a remarkable turnaround. Kennesaw State University has made the 11th District, the state of Georgia, immensely proud, and we're excited to have the Conference USA Football Championship trophy in Cobb County for the first time. I rise today to congratulate the university leadership, players, staff, and head coach Jerry Mack on an incredible season and a hard-fought win. We wish you the best of luck in your upcoming bowl game. I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Rhode Island seek recognition?
Address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman from Rhode Island is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, putting food on the table is about to get exponentially harder thanks to the $187 billion Republicans cut from SNAP in their big, ugly law. These harmful cuts impact roughly 35,000 Rhode Islanders. We saw the devastating consequences of SNAP uncertainty when Republicans let funding for the program lapse during the government shutdown. Demand at food pantries across my district shot up. Thankfully, Rhode Islanders do what they always do and stepped up to care for their neighbors. I've joined volunteers at the Mount Hope Community Center in Providence, the Elisha Project in Pawtucket, the Milagros Project in Woonsocket, and St. Raymond's Church Food Pantry in Providence. I heard directly from Rhode Islanders about the pain of rising grocery costs and their fears about losing SNAP. Many will be working for months to recover from the hardship of just 1 month of late SNAP payments. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman from Ohio is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to honor Caxton McGrew, Bastian Nowick, and Luke Hinkleman as the winners of the 2025 Congressional App Challenge for our district and name them as Ohio's 13th Congressional District Champions of the Week. Their app, Eagle Express, is an innovative system that allows students and teachers to better track and complete transactions within their school's token-based incentive program. The app will help teachers better manage students and students better manage their finances. Named after STEM High School's mascot, Beak Bucks allow teachers to award points to students for positive behavior in the form of paper money that they can redeem for prizes. But Caxton, Bastian, and Luke felt this was inconsistent and susceptible to forgery and fraud. Their app, Eagle Express, establishes online wallets for students to virtually track their Beak Bucks balances and redeem them for prize rewards. Eagle Express also streamlines the process for teachers, creating more efficient ways to track and allocate Beak Bucks. Mr. Speaker, stories of innovation like these raise my spirits and make me more optimistic for the future of our district and the rest of the country. Caxton, Bastian, and Luke are impressive examples of what our children can do when we invest in their futures and set them free to explore their interests. I once again want to extend my congratulations for being named 2025 App Challenge winners for Ohio's 13th Congressional District. We cannot wait to see what the future holds for these three young people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
I'd like to make a unanimous request to speak for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
I would like to thank President Trump and his Secretary of Defense for acting resolutely when it became apparent a boat full of illegal drugs, including fentanyl, was coming across the Caribbean Sea. Every year in this country, about 80,000 people have been dying. It used to be over 100,000 people are killed from illegal drugs. And for far too long, wimpy presidents sat there, watched it happen, didn't do anything. Finally, President Trump stepped up to the plate when he heard that there was a boat coming with enough fentanyl to kill millions of Americans. He acted resolutely. I'm sure he had lawyers who told him he could, lawyers who told him he couldn't, but he says, I'm going to err on the side of saving tens of thousands of American lives. Thank you, President Trump. I recently found out that I knew somebody whose son died of fentanyl overdose, and how horrible that must be. The rest of their life must be devastated. So I'm glad President Trump feels their pain, and he's acting strongly in this situation. Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Massachusetts seek recognition?
Unanimous consent to address the House.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to this year's massive $900 billion military spending bill. This legislation gives more money to the so-called Department of War than to our Department of Education, Transportation, and Health and Human Services combined. Mr. Speaker, can you ask my Republican colleagues to get serious about helping the American public? I know you seek to be judged by the content of your character. It is certainly poor character to be not supporting our military service members and their families. And this mammoth bill does not do that. Certainly it's poor character to block health care coverage for IVF, despite the fact that IVF is critical for helping active duty personnel grow their families. Certainly is poor character to ban initiatives associated with diversity, equity, and inclusion, even though these cuts will undermine military readiness. This bill, this mammoth bill, expands the administration's power to attack immigrants, including for our Haitian neighbors. The few good things in this legislation do not outweigh the cruelty and the harm that will undoubtedly come if it is signed into law. The public does not support this bill, and neither do I, and that is why I am a no vote. I yield back.
Thank you. For what purposes does the gentlelady from Ohio seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to sound the alarm for our republic and our Constitution. Every one of us here in Congress swore a solemn oath to protect and defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We did not give any president a blank check for war. President Trump is over his skis. Article 1 of our Constitution, the first the founders saw fit to forge into the foundation of our nation, gave Congress the power to declare war and send our troops into battle. No one person can send our brave sons and daughters into conflict on a whim. Instead, what have we witnessed? A dangerous, aggressive buildup of U.S. military power in the Caribbean. And where is the money coming from to do that? What is it being taken from? Lethal strikes against vessels off the coast of Venezuela are increasing. Then the Secretary of Defense allegedly gave an order to kill everybody on a boat. And what is the legal authority under which those orders were given? These strikes both are an escalation abroad and a direct attack on our U.S. Constitution here at home. Congress must reassert its constitutional authority to authorize the funds to pay for war. Mr. Speaker, I strongly supported this year's National Defense Bill. We must conduct vigorous oversight to halt this executive branch unilateral war-making. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our soldiers deserve us to do that. I yield back.
Gentlewoman yields. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I just introduced bipartisan legislation to stop utility companies from paying bonuses to their CEOs. This bipartisan bill is for folks in upstate New York working hard to pay their bills and raise their families, good, honest people who are sick and tired of being screwed over, ripped off, and left behind in an economy that is rigged against them. There's a retired nurse in Endicott raising her grandkids on a fixed income, and right now she's trying to decide between the NYSEG bill and the toys on the kids' Santa's list. A senior in Catchecton who stopped taking her prescriptions because she can't afford the meds and the NYSEG bill. A public school teacher in Ithaca who had to pick up a second job to make ends meet and still worries about losing her home this winter. And while these families are scraping by, The foreign-owned utility monopolies are jacking up rates again and doling out millions of dollars to CEOs sitting in boardrooms halfway around the world. Enough is enough. My bipartisan bill says we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to let you take money out of our pockets to line the pockets of corporate executives in Spain. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Thank you, gentleman. Yields. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Vermont seek recognition?